And to get a perspective, we are now joined by senior journalist from New Delhi, Pranay Sharma, joining in. Thanks a lot, Mr. Sharma, for joining in. The first question that I would like to ask you is that, do you think that the Jan Lokpal bill would be a proper answer to this entire agitation that we are seeing on the streets of New Delhi?
You know, it's difficult to say whether anything is a proper answer, but at least it gives you a starting point. You have something. Corruption is an issue which has been agitating the minds of a large number of people. It has been going on for several months now, and you've come to some kind of an agreement, at least where you can take it forward. Now, this could be a mechanism. Nobody knows. Once you start it, you may still find faults with it, but there is always scope for improvement on something once you start. And therefore, I mean, now there is a proposal of this kind of the mechanism that we are talking about. So let's discuss that and take it forward. Then we can see, I mean, how it's working.
So you're saying that there's still room for negotiation, but you know, critics do believe that some of the provisions that are there in this alternative Lokpal bill, the Citizens Lokpal bill, as they call it, some of the provisions are pretty draconian, and therefore it also runs on the assumption that people who would be there in the body would be absolutely corruption-free. So do you think there runs the risk of you know, bypassing the government completely out of this body? So there is the risk and there is the apprehension.
See, one of the major demands or stress has been that it has to be an independent body. Now, a lot of corruption is coming out of the government. So if you have government nominees, that definitely raises questions about the credibility of the body that you have. Now, during all these kind of negotiations, there is always a give and take. And these are maximalist positions. I'm sure that when they're talking about, they have some justification and why they are saying so. But again, from the government side, perhaps they are going to say that we are willing to accept a lot of these demands, but you should be a little flexible also in taking some of our demands. Now, the best thing is the negotiations are on, and finally I see that it's only through a negotiation that you can look for a resolution of this kind of an issue.
But how justified do you think is a demand for placing somebody as veteran as Anna Hazare as the chief of this body? Do you think it's justified? Do you think that the government has its point when it wants further negotiation as far as the nitty-gritties of this bill are concerned?
See, it's a question of whoever heads it has to have that credibility. It may be Anna Hazare, it may be somebody else. But the question here that I'm stressing on is the credibility of a body, who heads it, who are the members. If you have members who are tainted, about whom you have serious questions, then I don't think that body is going to function very well. Because right from the beginning, people will have its doubt. So if you are serious about addressing the issue of corruption, then and in establishing your credibility, you have to bring in people who have a very clean record, who are acceptable to a larger number of people, they've seen as honest, upright people, and that is a body which is going to function well.
I mean, that is the sense that we are getting on the streets of New Delhi and across India, and it seems like it's the case across Southasia as well, where people are getting completely frustrated with the amount of corruption that they are seeing in public life as well as in spheres of the government, and we are seeing that on the streets at this point in time. Do you think that the people at this point in time, they're absolutely, you know, fed up with the kind of tacit complicitness that we are seeing on the part of the government to deal with corruption and to book all those who are the perpetrators of such acts?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, that this is an issue which has been agitating them for a while. I mean, it is not one-off, you know. There have been series of scams and corruptions where people, either government officials, ministers, or those close to the ruling parties, they are involved. Now, this is a very serious question. It has been debated in many drawing rooms out in the street. People are talking about it. This not only tarnishes the image of the government, it is giving a bad name to the country. It will raise questions about foreign investors who are going to come. They will have to keep these things in mind, because if you look at it, earlier we've had reports of India doing great things. It's an emerging economy where a number of companies and people wanted to come and invest. But of late, you see these negative stories which are coming out about India, and I don't think, I mean, it's going to be a great thing. There are two parts. One, what is your image to the outside world, and the other thing, an issue which is affecting people to such an extent, you need to address it urgently.
Right, so most definitely such allegations and such corruption scams which have surfaced quite a lot in the past 1 year does dent the country's image, and it does not really help the country progress forward. Thanks a lot, Mr. Sharma, for joining in from New Delhi and giving us that perspective. That was senior journalist Pranay Sharma joining in from Delhi, and he was of course speaking on the recent agitation that's taking place in the Indian capital against corruption. So those were all the top stories from the region in the past 1 week. But what are the other news that's making headlines? Let's check them out in Southasia this week.
Terror spate continues in Pakistan. At least 41 died and many injured in two explosions that struck at a Sufi shrine in Pakistan's eastern city of Dera Ghazi Khan on Sunday. Police said that the blasts were caused by suicide bombers outside the shrine. No one has claimed responsibility yet, although Al-Qaeda-linked Taliban militants abhor the orthodox Sufi interpretation of Islam and have attacked Sufi targets in Pakistan several times in the past. However, the day after was eventful and strategically significant. British Prime Minister David Cameron came to Pakistan on Monday for a one-day visit. But what is interesting is what he came along with. David Cameron has promised £650 million UK over 4 years as aid to education. Cameron has also sought to boost trade between the two nations. In a joint statement, Cameron said trade between Pakistan and UK would rise from £1.9 billion to £2.5 billion by 2015.
And all the shared interests we've been discussing today, whether education or trade or investment, or indeed in fighting terrorism. And I don't accept that the signal coming from the West or from Britain is unhelpful.
Many call it Cameron's diplomacy gamble, as this comes 9 months after he accused Pakistan of turning a blind eye to terrorism.
Right here in Pakistan.
Meanwhile, the United States has pledged for around $50 million to jumpstart a slow-moving program to encourage the Taliban members in Afghanistan to stop fighting and support the government. Facing rising levels of violence in recent years, Afghanistan and US officials have struggled to craft incentives for insurgents to give up their cause. But government-funded programs have been plagued by misspent funds, and fledgling talks with Taliban leaders have made little headway so far. On the other hand, there is no headway in Nepal's political crisis as well. The government's efforts to bring a new budget has received yet another blow on Friday. This as the Maoists disapprove of Finance Minister Bharat Mohan Adhikari's attempt to introduce the budget early on May 3rd. The Maoists voiced strong reservations towards the unilateral decision taken by the Finance Minister without consulting the main coalition partner, and asserted that they were still in favour of introducing a supplementary budget. With opposition from the Maoist and main opposition Nepali Congress, the new budget will now essentially slip into limbo, leaving the government in a fix about how to move ahead. But that's not all. Already in troubled waters over the nomination of the party's office bearers, Nepali Congress is caught in a fresh intra-party dispute after party president Sushil Koirala sought dissolution of two more sister organizations. A bitter face-off is likely between Sushil Koirala and Sheh Bahadur Deuba factions in the party's Central Working Committee in the future, as President Sushil Koirala has sought resignations of the chiefs of Tarun Dal and Nepal Women's Association, something Deuba faction has strongly opposed. Meanwhile, the committee investigating the recent crash in the capital market in Bangladesh has submitted its findings to Finance Minister A.M.A. Mohit. Bangladesh media reports have quoted Committee Chairman Khondekar Ibrahim Khalid that the panel had recommended action against some 300 people responsible for the debacle that triggered violent street protests by small investors in the recent past. Now, some positive progress also happened in Sri Lanka this week. President Mahinda Rajapaksa on Tuesday handed over the deeds of lands to 3,000 more landless families under the 9th stage of awarding Rabima title deeds to landless families. The people suitable for receiving land ownership were selected by the Land Reforms Commission. Those who received Rabima title deeds include people from the south, Battikalawa and Mannar areas.
With that, we come to an end to this episode. Although there were several ups and downs in this week in South Asia, but it's definitely started on a brilliant note with India coming victorious in the Cricket World Cup. Once again, after 27 years and the cup belongs to India, we leave you with these amazing visuals.